Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing nonprofit, educational, or personal use, tips a balance in favor of fair use. Okay, you guys, just to give you a heads up, this is about child auditing in Scientology. Kate Gale, A Mind Never Dormant. Privacy, Silence, Scientology Therapy Confession. The Greek Bells. August 29th, 2012. Privacy, Silence, Scientology Therapy Confession. What should you tell other people? When should you shut your mouth? From the first time that each of us have learned over and told someone a secret, that leaned over and told someone else a secret that you had just promised not to tell anyone, we all understand the urge to tell secrets, to unload something that we don't want to hold on to by ourselves. Confession grasps the idea that people like to tell someone when they did something wrong. It makes them feel that they have been delivered from their sins. Scientology likes to ask kids questions. Scientology likes to ask kids questions. And they keep track of your answers. The great thing about Scientology and the Catholic Church is that they remember all the stuff you confess, and everything you say can and will be used against you. Imagine that the LAPD, the Hemet PD, and the Clearwater PD are fully aware of children being audited and asked these questions, and they're all fine with it. In fact, when the runaways run away, the police deliver them straight back to Scientology to be abused more. Therapy is also a place where you tell someone who you don't know your secrets. But unlike the Church of Scientology, therapists aren't generally holding this information over your head. Here's my thought on the sharing of personal private information. Don't. Yeah, especially if you're telling Rinder something. I don't know about therapy, which is probably a good idea for any number of people, but I don't like the idea of telling most anybody anything significant. I'm the same way. I think that if you give anybody private information, they might use it against you. Yep. Except your spouse and your kids and maybe 2 friends. Other than that, keep your secrets close. You may think you'll feel better if you unburden yourself. It's what journals are for. By whispering to your friends. But if they whisper it to someone else, then your story is out there. Your whole episode with the sheep, your sister-in-law, or the time you blank yourself with the blank, or the time you got lost coming home from work, or the time you shaved your head by accident, or cheated on your girlfriend, or slept with your boss, or shoplifted as a child, or waxed the hair off every part of your body, or sneaked out of work early, or prank called your boss at home, or climbed into a dungeon, part of the castle, past a sign that said keep out. Only tell the story if you don't mind everybody hearing it. Yep. Unless you're trying to test people. Sometimes you have to do that. Otherwise, keep it to your familia or your 2 or 3 closest friends who share your secret life. Keep your game face on. You'll need it. Americans like to tell their secrets on national television. Yeah, how has that ended for a lot of people? Talk shows bring out the best in them. They like to tell their strange sexual secrets, their personal crimes and evil meanderings. I don't understand that at all. Maybe I was raised wrong, but do you want to have your 15 seconds of fame for cheating on your wife with 3 of her sisters? Somehow, just when you think Americans can't stoop any lower, down they go. Down, way down. And in case you wanted to know what kinds of questions the Scientologist asks, here you go. Scientology's questions for children. Try answering these questions. Who would you be willing to tell these answers to? Just anyone? Security check children. HCO WW Security Form 8. The following is a processing check for use on children. LAPD, how about that? Isn't that awesome? Hemet PD. You guys might want these security check questions for your files. Clearwater PD. You might want to put these children's security check questions in your files for when the FBI comes and checks to see what you've done about all this that's going on. Be sure the children can understand the question. Yeah, because children really are not adults in small bodies. Rephrase it so he or she can understand it. The first question is the most potent. Children's security check, ages 6 to 12. Ages 6 to 12. What has somebody told you not to tell? So easy to see what they're doing. Have you ever decided you do not like some member of your family? See how they divide people? Have you ever taken something belonging to somebody else and never given it back? Have you ever pretended to be sick, ill, or blackmail material? Have you ever made yourself sick, ill, or hurt yourself to make somebody sorry? Have you ever wanted something very much, but never told anybody about it? Have you ever gotten yourself dirty on purpose? Have you ever refused to eat just to worry someone? People actually think L. Ron Hubbard was a genius. Have you ever refused to eat just to worry someone? Have you ever remembered something about yourself and not told anybody because you thought they wouldn't believe you or be angry at you? You see how they're trying to get information that you might have regarding your parent? Have you ever refused to obey an order from someone you should obey? Did L. Ron Hubbard have a little belt buckle just like Russell Brand? Russell Brand had that little obey button for his wife, Katy Perry. Huh. Must be a coincidence. Have you ever told another child something that wasn't true just to frighten or upset him? You guys also see what they're doing? They're siphoning out the more narcissistic psychopath types. You see what they're doing? Have you ever deliberately got another child or a grown-up into trouble? You see what I mean? Have you ever pestered older children or grown people who were trying to work? That question right there is so loaded and diabolical. I'm going to read it again in case you guys, I'm just going to go over it. Have you ever pestered older children or grown people who were trying to work? Do you see how sad that is? Have you ever been mean or cruel to an animal, bird, or fish? See what I mean? They're siphoning out the psychopath narcissist. so they can put them in the higher ranks. Have you ever forgotten to give food or water to a pet entrusted to your care? Oh, that's not blackmail material, is it? To make the child feel guilty? If they have a conscience? Have you ever broken something belonging to someone else? More guilt. Have you ever deliberately spoiled clothing of yours because you didn't like it? See, that's a manipulation, see? They're trying to siphon out like more manipulative children. Do you have a secret? Wow. I'm going to do a separate video with just questions. Have you ever noticed something wrong with your body that you are afraid to tell anybody about? You know what I'm thinking that's for? In case they get SA'd or physically abused, that can be used as blackmail against the perpetrator. Remember all that whole thing with Michael Jackson had certain marks? Have you ever done anything you were very much ashamed of? More guilt and shame. Is there anything about you your parents could not understand, even if you told them? More division between the parent and the child, you see? Have you ever failed to finish your schoolwork on time? More guilt and obligation. Have you ever flunked an examination at school? Guilt, obligation. Have you ever deliberately given a teacher trouble? Have you ever tried to make others dislike some teacher? Have you ever tried to make another child unpopular? See, those are the more narcissistic traits. Have you ever broken, damaged, or taken any school property? Have you ever lied to a teacher? Have you ever been late to school or late to a class? Have you ever stayed away from school when you could have gone? Have you ever cheated by copying someone else's work, taking notes into an examination, or looking up answers in a book when you weren't supposed to? Well, L. Ron Hubbard would know about that one day. Have you ever spoiled things for somebody? Who have you made guilty? Narcissism, anyone? Have you ever done something you shouldn't when you were supposed to be in bed or sleeping or asleep? Have you ever told others bad stories about someone? Have you ever tried to make others believe that your parents or teachers were cruel to you? Oh, wow, you guys. Wow, wow. You guys see what they're going to do with that, right? Have you ever offered as an excuse for something you have done wrong that you are only a child? Oh, wow. Or that you haven't grown up yet? Because you see, they can't argue that they're only a child. You see this? Do you see how sick it is? You see why Scientology creates complete psychopaths with no empathy or compassion? Have you ever felt that your parents and home were too good for you? Have you ever felt that your parents and home weren't good enough for you? See, these are what they're going to use in between the parents and the children. Wow. You guys really believe that L. Ron Hubbard came up with all this? Wakey, wakey, MNFers. Is there anything you should tell your parents and never have? Have you ever done something to your body that you shouldn't have? Oh, you guys. Have you ever done anything to someone else's body that you shouldn't have? Have you ever told anyone that you did something when you hadn't really done it? Have you ever told anyone that you hadn't done something which you really had done? Have you ever ganged up on another child and made fun of him because he was different from the rest of you? Have you ever made fun of another because of the way he looked? Have you ever decided never to talk to someone again? Have you ever made your parents or teachers work harder than they should? Have you ever decided that you were too bright or too smart for the other kids? They're gonna drum that child down. Can't have good confidence. Have you ever annoyed an adult by something you did or said? Have you ever hurt a child? Have you ever made a child cry? Have you ever made a child sulk? Have you ever kept another child from having something that really belonged to him? Have you ever found anything and failed to return it to its owner? Child Protective Services, anyone? Have you ever told stories about someone behind their back? Have you ever lied to escape blame? Have you ever not told the truth about something so as to protect someone? Have you ever felt ashamed of your parents? You guys know what they're going to do with that. Have you ever felt ashamed of your friends? Have you ever disappointed your parents? See how they isolate people? The Nazis did it too, but what do I know? Have you ever run away when you should have stayed? Have you ever felt sure your parents wouldn't understand something that had happened in school, so you didn't tell them? Have you ever not told teachers something about your family because they wouldn't understand it? Have you ever failed to keep another child's secret? Have you ever felt it was just no use talking to someone? Have you ever hurt someone you didn't mean to? Have you ever been sloppy about your clothes or possessions? Have you ever cried when you shouldn't have? Have you ever been a coward? Have you ever made too much fuss over a little hurt? Have you ever tried to make your parents believe you were doing better in school than you were? Have you ever told on anyone? Have you ever teased younger children? Have you ever made a mess and not helped to clean it up? Have you ever broken or damaged something and never told anybody it was you who did it? Have you ever let someone else get punished for something you did? See, more siphoning out the narcissistic psychopaths. Have you ever cried till you got your own way? Have you ever decided someday when I'm grown up, I'll get even? If so, with whom? Wow. Have you ever picked on someone smaller than yourself? Have you ever upset anyone by throwing a temper tantrum? Have you ever hurt anyone by telling them you didn't love them anymore? Have you ever made out that you were more badly damaged than you were in order to make someone stop picking on you? Have you ever pretended to like someone that you didn't like in order to satisfy your parents? Have you ever done anything wrong according to your own religion? Have you ever not understood why someone was angry with you? See how they control people and children too? Have you ever pretended not to understand what you had done wrong? Have you ever pretended not to understand what someone wanted you to do? Have you ever been in places where your parents didn't want you to go? Have you ever spied on anyone? Have you ever made friends with people your parents didn't approve of? Have you ever thought someone was crazy? Have you ever broken up a friendship? Have you ever let your team or school or club down? Have you ever tried to keep someone from making friends with another child? That's what a narc would do. Well, maybe. Maybe if they're jealous, I don't know. Have you ever pretended not to hear your parents or teacher? Have you ever made a fuss about doing something that your parents or teacher wanted you to do? Which is natural behavior, by the way. Have you ever done something to someone that you'd hate to have done to you? Sound like the Bible? All those questions, blackmail material for children. LAPD is fine with it. Hemet PD is okay with it. Clearwater PD is fine with it. And it appears that FBI and Homeland Security is fine with children from 6 to 12 being sec checked with these questions constantly, having their childhood taken away from them. I'm going to stand by this. I think a lot of these children need to be taken away from their parents. And maybe in the perfect ideal situation, the children could be placed with other relatives that are more caring, empathic. That would be the ideal situation. I will leave a link in the description box. Like and subscribe if you choose. Otherwise, have an amazing day or night wherever you are. Peace.